Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of the Jank Think Tank, where we take cards and talk about different combos and all sorts of stuff in the casual aspects. We do a lot of deck techs here that aren't necessarily optimized, but they're more fun for your gameplay enjoyment. So the deck we're going to be talking about today is something that I built specifically for an upcoming movie release, something that I have been a big fan of my entire life because it's big monsters. It's the Godzilla versus Kong movie. The 28th, I believe, is when it releases this month. Oh, I'm so excited. So ecstatic for it. So I created this whole deck that's based around nothing but the Godzillaverse cards. It's called Destroy All Monsters. So if we jump over to it, once again, I use Tapped Out. Tapped Out's a wonderful tool to show all of my deck techs, all of the deck builds that I've ever had. I usually throw them in here. Wonderful tool. But this is the deck. I've named it Destroy All Monsters, kind of a throwback to one of the early Godzilla films where Godzilla Destroy All Monsters. It included almost every single Godzillaverse kaiju and had them just big brawl battle out kind of thing. I was kind of up in arms about the name. I didn't know whether I should name it Kaiju Time, Destroy All Monsters, or after the 2014 Godzilla movie, Let Them Fight. But I decided to go with this route because it seemed thematically correct.
Yeah, I would agree. Very thematically correct. And as I looked through the deck preparing for this, I could tell, I was like, oh, this is major stompy. So Destroy All Monsters.
Major stompy. Yep. It's big creatures.
Yeah.
We'll just jump right into it. This creatures, land, sorceries, artifacts. I don't know why it says unknown right here because that's technically a creature. I just don't know why it says unknown. Enchantments, instants. I didn't separate them into converted mana cost this time because most of our CMC stuff is going to be on the higher end. I can transfer it over, but I'd rather just go through the creatures. And
I think for this one, it would fit, since we're going to be focusing on the creatures. This is a very creature-heavy deck. I mean, hell, you're running 39 creatures if you include
count that unknown.
Sure, yeah. And so, yeah, no, very creature-heavy. So I would suggest let's run through everything else, the lands, sorceries, artifacts, all that. Save the creatures for last.
Very good choice. Very good. I mean, I am going to start with the commander. The commander, I decided to go with Progenitus because as far as big stompy goes, double Wooburg, which is 2 white, 2 blue, 2 black, 2 red, 2 green for a legendary creature, Hydra Avatar. It's a 10/10 with protection from everything. So protection from all colors, protection from creatures, protection from sorceries, everything, artifacts, all of it. If Progenitus would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Progenitus and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. There was a couple of different choices I had for the commander. I could have gone with a Yamada no Orochi, but for a 5-color, I almost decided on the Wellspring card since it's a mana rock or a mana dork, Wooburg mana dork. But I decided on Progenitus because 1, it's a big creature. 2, because there is a kaiju called Yamada no Orochi. And that's kind of the theme of the deck. Most of the creatures, if they don't specifically have the Godzilla card type or the Godzillaverse card art, I've based it off of a creature in the Godzillaverse. Progenitus is Yamada no Orochi, which, fun fact, was an actual god. Yamada no Orochi was an actual god in the Godzillaverse that Godzilla just freaking wrecked. Just Shrek this guy. Oh, it was great.
Well, and I feel it's very fitting because when Progenitus hits the battlefield, it's like, ugh.
Everyone's like, oh god, Zilla.
Yeah.
But starting with our lands, after that, I have a throwback to an old land. It's called Arena. Since you're going to be doing a lot of fighting mechanics in this deck, Arena is a great card. You pay 3 to tap it, and tap target creature you control and target creature an opponent's choice he or she controls. Each of those creatures deals damage equal to its power to the other. So it's a let them fight on a land. So it's also really cool. You can also do it for like combat tricks. If someone swings in with a creature that you for some reason has menace and you can't block it, you only have one creature, but your one creature is massive compared to his. You can pay 3, tap it, tap both of them, and they fight anyways. So I find it, 1, thematically correct to put in the deck, and 2, it's really fun card to play. Next up, we have Breeding Pool, which is Shockland. Shockland means as it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 life. If you do, it enters the battlefield untapped. If you don't, and it enters the battlefield tapped. So you play it, pay 2 life, untapped. If you don't, it explains on the card. But mana fixing is also going to be a big thing in this deck because we're running all 5 colors.
Yeah.
So I figured, I also went with theme lands for a little bit. Breeding Pool, I figured fit some of the backstory of the Godzilla verse and some of the creatures that come from it. So that's why it's in here.
That makes sense.
Evolving Wilds, of course, because we're in 5 colors. And then I specifically put the Godzilla Secret Lair lands in this deck.
Those are gorgeous.
Oh, I actually own 6 of these, 6 of each one. I bought so many. I spent so much money on it. But it's worth it because I love it.
It makes sense when you have a deck that is very theme based like this. That just adds to the flavor of the deck. And
that's what the deck is. It's flavorful.
It is so flavorful.
It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be a fun deck. But we have 6 Godzilla forests, 6 Godzilla islands, which if I can get the artwork, beautiful artwork. Wonderful job on the artwork for these cards. Godzilla Mountain, you can actually see Godzilla versus Rodan on this one. The Plains has Mothra and Godzilla. The swamps include Godzilla and Hedorah, which is a swamp-based monster, or a pollution-based monster, I should say. Then I'm running Rogren Triome because Monster Island in the Monsterverse, it fits. The artwork on it is beautiful. It fits the theme. Stomping Ground. Once again, theme.
Yeah.
You can't run Stomping Ground, or you have to run Stomping Ground in this deck. You can't not run Stomping Ground in this deck, I should say. But that's our lands. That's our land base. You may look over here and be like, wow, that doesn't really match any of what we have at all. But we have mana fixing stuff in the deck, so it works. Sorceries. First off, we have Cultivate. If I can get it, there we go. Cultivate, mana ramp, mana fixing. Farseek, mana ramp, mana fixing. Genesis Ultimatum, which is 2 green, 3 blue, 2 red. So Teamer. Sorcery, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield and the rest into your hand. We have a lot of high-costing stuff, so this kind of helps put that stuff onto the battlefield while ignoring mana cost. It's a way to cheat out some of our bigger stuff. And it says permanents. So that can be your lands, that can be your artifacts, that can be creatures. So as long as it's a permanent, this helps cheat that stuff out. It is possible to whiff with this, though. I have whiffed with it and revealed like all instants and sorceries.
Yeah, and that's always like,
But at least it draws you those, or technically draws you those cards. It puts them into your hand.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, Kodama's Reach, same thing as Cultivate. Ruinous Ultimatum, it's a board wipe, Mardu board wipe. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control for 2 red, 3 white, 2 black.
Nice little one-sided board wipe.
Yeah, a one-sided board wipe. Supreme Verdict, once again, another board wipe. 1, 2 white, 1 blue. Supreme Verdict can't be countered. Destroy all creatures. So whereas Ruinous Ultimatum said non-land permanents, this one specifically hits creatures. It also just looks like a giant laser beam. Like Godzilla. Like Godzilla's on the earth, just
yeah.
Then Wrath of Godzilla. 2 and a white. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. So I'm going to be making that joke a lot throughout this. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Next up, we have Cage Sun. when it enters the battlefield, choose a color. I'm typically going to choose green with this because green is our highest color that or the most common color that this deck runs is green. So green, creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+1, and whenever a land's ability adds 1 or more mana of the chosen color to your mana pool, add 1 additional mana of that color to your mana pool. So it essentially doubles the mana of whatever color you choose. So if you're low on black mana and you play Cage Sun, go ahead and call black. So that way you have that mana fixing. If you're low on red, call red, so on and so forth. Chromatic Lantern. Lands you control have add 1 mana of any color. So you're flooded with green mana. And you have red stuff that you have to play. Play Chromatic Lantern. All your forests now tap for red as well. Or instead. Whatever you need.
Yeah.
Lightning Greaves.
I did notice something on your tap, just something I noticed. You have 2 Chromatic Lanterns in the.
Oh, I do. That is my fault. I must have accidentally put that.
Here's a crazy suggestion then. Because obviously a deck has to be 100 cards.
1 of each.
Obviously, we got to take 1 out, which means that would drop the deck to 99. Why not put the World Tree in? One of the new land cards. It taps for green, but once you have 6 or more lands, it will then all of your lands tap for mana of any color. So it's a faster mana fixing. And we can
live edit. We can live edit this right now. So Chromatic Lantern, just knock that down to 1. Boom. And this is how easy tapped out is.
Oh, yeah.
This is the deck. You just go to card name, the world tree, and it'll proliferate that in. We'll add the world tree in and then add to board. And then it'll pop up at the bottom right here, the world tree. Scroll down. I'll just press save. And once it loads.
And what's funny, like if you were to have, say, Masquerade Nexus in the deck, I know that part wouldn't necessarily be so themed, but making all of your creatures all creature types, you could sack the world tree and cheat out everything. Granted, you'd have to have at least 1 Godzilla in the deck.
Godzilla.
Once you have that 1 god on the battlefield, you crack the world tree, boom. Welcome to hell.
You could do that. And that's something that I always suggest. If you like the deck tech, always encourage is the word I was looking for. If you like the deck tech, but you want to make changes to it, go ahead and make changes. Your play style is your play style. This is just how. Oh my goodness, what is this? My antivirus. I don't know why that. Let's back that up. Thank you, computer, for doing something. I didn't click on anything. It just popped up. Your McAfee antivirus is expired. Thank you.
Okay.
So, let's try this again.
There we go.
All right. So good catch. Thank you. I apparently made that mistake when originally creating this.
No, but this is good. Like for people who have never built, especially a commander deck, it's these sorts of things you have to look for because of the singleton rule. Basic lands, you can obviously have more than 1. Everything else has to be 1 unless the card dictates otherwise.
Like Shadowborn Apostle or Pact Rats or Relentless Rats.
Pact Rats you can only. I was going to say Pact Rats you can only have 1. It's Relentless Rats, Rat Colony, 7 Dwarves, and Shadowborn Apostle. Those are the 4 that I know of that allow you to have more than 1.
Yeah. But then Lightning Greaves to give stuff haste and Shroud, which Shroud is a mechanic that's kind of like Hexproof. It's just that you can't target it with stuff as well as your opponents can't target it, whereas Hexproof is just your opponents.
Yep.
And then Soul Ring. It's a commander staple. You should always, or I won't say you should always have a Soul Ring, but it's highly suggested to always have a Soul Ring in a commander deck.
Especially with commander decks too.
And especially, it doesn't really do anything for Progenitus because it's,
by the time you pull Progenitus out, it's time is of the essence at that point.
Next up, we have our enchantment, Burgeoning. Turn 1 Burgeoning. Whenever an opponent plays a land, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. It's a great way to get out your lands. Turn 1, play Burgeoning. Your next opponent's more than likely going to play a land their next turn. So you just keep playing lands on everybody else's turn. It's wonderful. Colossal Majesty, thematically fitting because Godzilla is colossal and he's majestic. Don't at me. He's a majestic creature.
I'm not arguing with that logic because even the artwork fits.
And that see all those monkeys that are about to be stomped. That's essentially what's going to happen in the movie. Kong's just going to get stomped by Godzilla. Don't at me. It's going to happen.
Love it.
Next up, we have Exploration. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Once again, turn 1, play a forest, tap it, play Exploration, play another forest, Burgeoning. Already way ahead of the game. It's wonderful.
Love it.
Kavu Lair. All right, so I put this in the deck because it kind of sounds like Kaiju. And so Kaiju Lair, Kavu Lair. It was a stretch, but I figured it was fine. It was suggested to me by my good friend Brandon.
I see what you're going with it, though.
And whenever a creature with power 4 or greater comes into play, its controller draws a card. So it's a world effect for everybody. So like how Colossal Majesty, Colossal Majesty is the beginning of your upkeep. The one I'm thinking of is
Garrick's Uprising.
Garrick's Uprising. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, draw a card. It's just that for everybody.
I like it.
We have a couple ley lines. I threw Leyline of Anticipation in there because, one, it gives all of your stuff flash. As we've learned from many Game Nights episodes and many other Commander games, if you can cast stuff on another person's turn, it's a wonderful thing to do. Anything with instant speed is great advantage. This one is wonderful because most ley lines, or all ley lines, I believe, they all say that if you have this in your opening hand at the beginning of the game, you can play it immediately for free or start the game with it on the battlefield.
Yeah. It's an instant ahead of the game at that point if you have that.
And also, once again, theme, it's ocean based, and Godzilla resides mostly in the ocean.
Kind of looks like Skull Island too.
Kind of does. Leyline of Life Force. Once again, if it starts in your opening hand at the beginning of the game, you may keep it on the battlefield or start the game with it in play. Creature spells can't be countered.
Ooh.
We're running a lot of creatures that most people don't want on the battlefield. So this, once again, puts you ahead of the curve. It's a great thing to have.
Yeah.
Mana Flare. 2 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever any player taps a land for mana, it produces 1 additional mana of the same type. So you tap a green, adds another green. Tap a red, adds another red. So on and so forth. It also works with generic. If you tap something for a generic mana, it adds another generic mana. But it's specifically lands, so you can't do that with artifacts. Mana fixing, mana ramp. And then where Ancients Tread. Once again, I didn't know this card existed. It was suggested to me by my good friend Brandon. 4 and a red enchantment. Whenever a creature with power 5 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you may have where Ancients Tread deal 5 damage to target creature or player.
Ooh. So that's good.
Godzilla's stomping around, entering the battlefield, just dealing 5 damage just from his footsteps. I love it. Moving on to instants, we have Clash of Titans.
Solid card from Ikoria. Layer of Behemoths.
Target creature fights another target creature. So once again, it's fight mechanic, thematically in the name, Clash of Titans.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing about this is that you don't even have to target your creatures to fight stuff. If someone else on your board or in your play group has a giant creature that can deal damage, and another person has something that is very troublesome, you can target your opponent's stuff with it. So
this is the type of card that I would target my opponent's commander and have them fight a little 1/1 Death Toucher. Have fun. Yep. Poof. But I'm also kind of that snarky kind of player that I would do that sort of thing.
Yeah. So it's kind of one of my favorite gameplay moments ever is when I swung in with a 9/9 and the person could block it, but I was like, you don't have to block. You're at like 48 life, and you're going to have to block it and get rid of your creatures on the board. You don't have to. Okay, I'll take 9. Okay, and instant speed, Tainted Strike. Bye-bye. So that's the kind of player. I'm not always that way.
So for those of you who don't know the card that he's referring to, Tainted Strike is a wonderful instant for just 1 black. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Infect until end of turn. And Infect, if you get 10 poison counters, boom, you're dead. You could have 200 life. I don't really care. Once you hit that 10 poison counter threshold, you're done.
Done.
I'm a very big
I thought to myself,
of Infect.
I did it, and I was like, "Oh, Craig Blanchett would be so proud of me."
Mr.
Infect.
I think I told you I had a game the other day. I had like 30 elves on the field, all 2/2s
with Death Touch.
No, because I was playing my last roll.
Okay, never mind. This different one. You were telling me about. Yeah.
So I swing in with all my elves. But before I did that, I played a sorcery called Triumph of the Hordes. Mm-hmm. Creatures I control get +1/+1 till end of turn, gain trample and infect. And I ended up having a total of 60. I think it was like 63 total power on the board.
It feels so good.
Oh, it was a wonderful moment.
Because they're all like, okay, I can take this damage to. Oh no.
Yeah, well, and with the way that this deck is built, being able to all of a sudden flash out Triumph of the Hordes,
that would be great. That would be great.
I'm sick and twisted. Anyway, back to the deck.
Next up, we have Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift is a 1 in a blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, but it has an overload cost of 6 in the blue or 7. And if you cast this spell for its overload cost, you change the text replacing all instances of target with each. So basically, it's a one-sided board wipe, returning everything you don't control that's a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Wonderful card, commander staple in almost every blue deck.
Yep.
I saw this and I immediately thought of the scene from Godzilla, King of the Monsters, when Ghidorah or Monster Zero was flying through and he had that giant hurricane around him.
So that's
what I thought of.
Well.
That's what I thought of when I saw this. Next up, Path to Exile. I wanted some removal, even if it's not themed. I needed some kind of removal other than just board wipe. So 1 white, instant, exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle their library. Swords to Plowshares, also 1 white, instant, exile target creature, but its controller gains life equal to its power. So you exile a 4/4, they gain 4 life. Titanic Brawl, once again, kind of like with Clash of Titans, Titanic Brawl costs 1 less to cast if it targets a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it, and it's a 1 green instant. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So whereas Clash of Titans, you can target other people's stuff, Titanic Brawl, you have to target something of yours, and it fights an opponent's creature. But once again, you can do all sorts of combat tricks with this. It's instant speed. If it was sorcery speed, it would be a lot worse, but it's not. So pretty good include.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to cover this unknown real quick before we technically move on to the creatures. I don't know why Tapped Out includes this as an unknown, because it is a creature. It is a legal creature. I just don't know why it's technically unknown. But Cherick's the Raging Isle. 2 blue for a legendary creature, Leviathan Crab.
I figured it out.
You figured it out?
I did, because if you look at the way that the name is highlighted in the list, it just says Cherick's Raging Isle, but the card actually is Cherick's, the Raging Isle.
Okay. So I'll have to go back through and fix that at some point, but I don't know why. Either way.
Tapped out nuances.
It wants specifics. It wants specific stuff.
It does, actually.
But it says spells your opponent's cast that target Cherick's the Raging Isle cost 2 more to cast. So if they go to Path to Exile it, instead of it being 1 white, it's now 2 generic and 1 white. And you can pay 3 generic. Cherick's gets +X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of islands you control. In a 5-color deck, this isn't optimal, but I included this because there's a kaiju called Ebera that Godzilla fights in one of the early movies. It's essentially a giant crustacean called the King of the Seas, I believe is what it was. And so I included it because it's a kaiju monster based off of the Godzilla verse. So, and
I like it.
Also, yeah, it's still pretty good. It's a 0/17.
Yeah, it makes for a great blocker. The one trick with Cherick's that you have to be careful of, because you pay the 3 generic, or you pay 3 mana, and it gets +X/-X. And if you do that so many times, you run the risk of actually killing it.
Yeah. So if you have 17 lands, if you're a mono blue deck and you have 17 lands and you activate Cherick's ability, Cherick's is gone, because it immediately drops to 0 toughness, which means it's dead.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So with the way that you've got this built out, I mean, you've got 6 islands, so you could safely activate it twice.
Technically 7, because Rogran Triome is an island.
So yeah.
8,
okay.
Because Breeding Pool as well.
Okay. So yeah, you can safely activate it twice and make it a very gnarly crab.
A 16-1.
16-1. Yeah, that would just get plink and would die. But if you get it through, then it would do quite a bit of damage.
And you can activate that at instant speed. So you could just be like, attack with Cherick's. It's a 0/17. And if they're not thinking, they can be like, oh, yeah, it goes through. And now it's a 16-1.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of stuff. Moving on to the creatures.
Yay!
My favorite part. So first up, we have one of the commanders from one of the precons. AC, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. 4 green-blue. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. So first off, ramp on a creature. Second, card draw on a creature for whenever you play a land. Couple that with something like Exploration or Burgeoning. Very good value. The monster I based this off of is known as Titanosaurus, which is another sea-based creature that Godzilla fights. I believe the first appearance of Titanosaurus was Godzilla, Revenge of Mechagodzilla. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty confident that's the one it was first appeared as. It was a unknown sea monster that attacked a seafaring crew.
Yeah, so it was Terror of
Mechagodzilla,
and that was in 1975.
Oh, I love Godzilla movies. Oh, there's wonderful. Like, they're bad, but wonderful.
But that's what makes them so good.
Next up, we have one of the Ikoria technical Godzilla monsters. BioQuartz Space Godzilla, otherwise known as Brokos, Apex of Forever. 2 and Sultai. 2 black, green, blue. And it has a mutate cost of 2 black or blue, green, green. It has Trample. You may cast Brokos Apex of Forever from your graveyard using its Mutate ability. So for those who don't know, Mutate is a new mechanic that was released in Ikoria, and it's still really confusing to a lot of people, but this is essentially how it works. You pay the Mutate cost, and you are essentially combining it with a non-human creature that you control on the battlefield. What that means is you can either place it over a creature or place it under a creature. If you place it over a creature, let's say you have a 3/3 beast, just a regular 3/3 beast with no effects, just vanilla, and you mutate Biocourt Space Godzilla over the 3/3 beast, it gains the power and toughness of Space Godzilla along with the abilities of Space Godzilla. That's if you place it over. If you place it under, it remains a 3/3 beast, but it still gains the abilities of Space Godzilla. So no matter how you mutate it, it's going to gain the ability of it because you're basically fusing the monsters.
What's also really nice with mutate is if you already have a creature on the battlefield and you mutate Biocourt Space Godzilla onto a 1/1 Blighted Agent. #infect. If Blighted Agent was on the field your prior turn, then you can start swinging right away because that creature does no longer have summoning. It doesn't have summoning sickness, even though you just played the Biocourt Space Godzilla because you're mutating it.
Space Godzilla is becoming Blighted Agent. It's not entering the battlefield. It's not changing zones. It is combining with the creature that is already on the battlefield.
So it goes from a 1/1 unblockable with infect to a 6/6 with trample, unblockable, and infect. Overkill, yes. Do I care? No.
No, because overkill is what we're doing. This is a Godzilla deck. Overkill is what we do.
Yep.
Next up, we have Crystalline Giant. Another Ikoria card. This is Mecha Godzilla. Unfortunately, I don't know how to read kanji, so I have to go through and pull up exactly what it says. So give me just a second. I should have been prepared for this.
So I could explain Crystalline Giant just because I've got the card and I know how it runs.
Okay.
So Crystalline Giant, it's at the beginning of the combat phase.
On your turn.
So, on your turn. Crystalline Giant will gain a keyword ability, which was a big thing during Ikoria. So you randomly pick whether it's Death Touch, Hexproof, Flying, Trample, Lifelink, Vigilance. You will pick one of those keyword abilities and put that on Crystalline Giant. And then on the next turn, they'll do the same thing again, but it will be a keyword that you don't already have. So if you don't deal with it soon enough, it's going to become a very big problem.
I built a new deck on Arena last night, and I put Crystalline Giant in it, and it was definitely I threw it in there just because it has this keyword on it. I'll just throw it in there just because, but it ends up being a massive powerhouse in the deck. So it's a very good card. It's not a human, so you can. Oh, it's a giant. Sorry, I just realized it's a giant, so I can put it in my giant tribal deck.
And it's colorless, so you're not bound by the color identity.
Exactly. So.
And I've played your giant deck. Oh, that's gross. Gross.
Just my brain went click.
I do like the Mecha Godzilla look. When I first saw the artwork for this particular card, though, honestly, it reminded me more of the Dragon Zord.
It does. It does look like the Dragon Sword. This one is specifically the Kiryu from Tokyo SOS. Godzilla Tokyo SOS from Kiryu. Next up, we have Dirge Bat, which once again, it's in kanji, so I can't read it, but I will pull it up real quick. I mean, I guess I can always just do this instead instead of going to a separate page, I'll just click on Dirgebat. This is the original. Yeah, this is the original art for it. Dirgebat, which is a 2 black creature bat, and it has mutate of 4 and 2 black. It has flash, flying, and whenever this creature mutates, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Yeah. So it's removal on a creature if you mutate it. It's pretty decent. I put it in there specifically because, you know, it's one of the Godzilla cards. It's Batra from the original Godzilla versus Mothra.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Next up, we have Dreamtail Heron. In one of the first Godzilla movies, he fights a giant eagle. And I just kind of put it in there because it kind of matched the description. I understand it's a heron and not an eagle, but deal with my imagination for right now. It's okay. It's a 4 and a blue elemental bird with flying, and whenever this creature mutates, draw a card. Mutate cost is 3 and a blue. So I put it in there specifically for that card draw mechanic because of the mutate.
Really? I would have put it in there to make Godzilla fly, give it an extra evasion.
You can. That's an alternate reason why I put it in there. But the main reason I did was for that card draw, because that's something that I found was lacking in the deck, was just forms of card draw.
Yeah.
So next up, Dryad of Elysian Grove. This one doesn't have a theme or doesn't have a background to it. I put it in there because the abilities. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, and lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So you have a forest, it's now a swamp as well, or an island, or a mountain, or plains. So it's mana fixing and mana ramp on a creature. Itali, once again, Itali Primal Storm. There's a couple different things I could have put this it could have matched Baragon from the Godzilla verse, or it could have just matched this and this. I decided to just not try to match it with anything because I have other things that fit better descriptions. I put it in there specifically because it's a dinosaur and the ability on it is amazing. So it's 4 red legendary creature elder dinosaur with 6/6, or it's a P&T of 6/6. Whenever Itali Primal Storm attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana costs. So you get to play other people's decks with this card. It's a good card. It's a very good one. When I was first building the deck, I was trying to decide what route I wanted to go with it. I was like, should I do 5-color mutate? Should I do dinosaur sub-theme? So I was still up in arms about how to go with it, and I decided to keep Itali in when I was re-editing, do my final edits for it, because it's a powerhouse of a card. Next up, we have Everquill Phoenix, otherwise known as Destroyer, the Perfect Life Form, which is a creature Phoenix, 2 red, with a mutative cost of 3 and a red. Flying, whenever this creature mutates, create a red artifact token named Feather with 1 generic, sacrifice Feather, return target Phoenix card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it's a recurring monster with a mutate effect. The mutate effect alone makes it really good because you can mutate it onto something, give it flying for just 4 mana. But the fact that it's second ability, you mutate it onto something, they both die. Let's say you mutate it onto Itali. You mutate it onto Itali. They both die. Itali and Destroya go to the graveyard, but you still get that one or that feather token. You can return Destroya to the battlefield repeatedly, even if you're not mutating it. Yeah. So first time you mutate it, it's good. Second time, it's just a 4/4.
Yeah, it's got good graveyard recursion.
Also, Destroya is one of my favorite villain kaijus. It's hard to describe what a villain is in the Godzilla verse because they're all giant monsters. They're all going to destroy stuff. But he was, if we were to use the alignment chart, for example, he would be a chaotic evil, whereas Godzilla, for example, is true neutral.
Oh, okay.
And that's something I'll talk about a little bit for each one. But chaotic evil, he he was Destroyer, the perfect life form. He was meant to destroy, and he was destroying stuff all over. And that's where we got to see the first glimpse of Burning Godzilla. Whereas with Godzilla King of the Monsters, we saw Burning Godzilla versus Ghidorah. Burning Godzilla first made his appearance in the Godzilla vs. Destroyer movie. And so,
okay.
Yeah. Frenzied Raptor, I based this one off Baragon because Baragon was a small dinosaur-esque creature that was pretty vanilla. He liked to dig. This is a 4-2. I put this in here because it's a 3-mana 4-2 that you can mutate on.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much simple. Gym Razor. Anguirus! Armor Killer. So in the Godzilla Destroy All Monsters video game for GameCube, Anguirus was one of my favorites to play with because his defense was him turning around and just having his shell to the enemy, and they would go to attack and they'd hurt themselves because they'd be stabbing themselves on the spikes. And so it was just really funny. But Gym Razor or Anguirus is 3 and a green for Beast with a mutate cost of 1 green. Reach and Trample. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment and opponent controls. And there's a wonderful combo I will talk about later. Wonderful combo. Anguirus, back to the Enlightenment chart. He was an ally to Godzilla. He wasn't evil. I would put him as chaotic neutral because he fought Godzilla, but then they were friends and he kind of went back and forth, but I'd put him as chaotic neutral. Next up, we have Galta, Primal Hunger. Once again, Elder Dinosaur, that with this deck, you are more than likely going to cast this 12/12 for 2 green. Because this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. So even if you have just your commander, that's a 10/10. So Galta, this 12/12 is going to cost 2. It's a wonderful card. Godzillasaurus, when they redid Godzilla's backstory, they made him a Godzillasaur. And so that's kind of what I based it off of.
Okay, that makes sense.
Giant Adaphage. There's a giant bug kaiju that shot lightning out of his horn called Megalon. This was the closest thing I could find that matched its description. It was a giant bug. 5 green for 7/7. Trample. Whenever Giant Adaphage deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of Giant Adaphage.
It's a giant appendage.
Yeah. It's just going to, as long as you're dealing combat damage, it's going to keep making copies of itself. And the fact that it's not legendary is wonderful because, reasons. If it was legendary, it would actually be really stupid.
Yeah, or it would have to have some sort of clarification in the rules text that it's not a legendary permanent.
Right.
Like the token copy wouldn't be.
Next up, we have Gigan Cyberclaw Terror, or Garuda, Doom of the Depths, which is a 4 blue or black. So hybrid mana.
Mm-hmm.
Hybrid mana works. You can either pay either color. So if you don't have black, you can still cast this for paying blue, and vice versa. Legendary creature, Demon Kraken. This one has companion on it. We're not worried about the companion cost, but the companion cost says your starting deck contains only cards with even converted mana cost. And that's the requirement for the companion mechanic. But like I said, we're not worried about that. We're just going to throw away that effect. When Gigan enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. So it mills them 4. It also mills you 4, but you're not worried about that. And you get something back unless you whiff. Value. Hangerback Walker is our second Mecha Godzilla. Mecha Godzilla Battle Fortress, which has double X, artifact creature construct. Hangerback Walker. Why'd you yawn? Man, you threw me off. It took me a second, but my brain clicked. But Hangerback Walker enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and when it dies, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying for each +1/+1 counter on Hangerback Walker. So you cast it for 4. You pay 4 mana to cast this. It ETBs with 2 power or 2 +1/+1 counters on it. It dies. You then create 2 Thopters. Why'd you do this? What have you done? What have you started?
I know nothing.
You can then pay 1, tap it, and put a +1/+1 counter on Hangerback Walker. That's the original artwork for it. But
I like the Mecha Godzilla.
Everyone loves Mecha Godzilla. It's wonderful. Huntmaster Liger. This is our first copy of King Caesar. There's another one. We'll get to it in a minute. King Caesar, Ancient Guardian, or Huntmaster Liger, 3 and a white, with a mutate cost of 2 and a white. Whenever this creature mutates, other creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated. So, you mutate this once, all of your creatures get +1 or +1/+1 until end of turn. If you mutate something onto it again, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. All your creatures get +2/+2, and so on and so forth. It stacks. That's a good protein shake. It's a Banana Foster. It's quite delicious. Ooh. Next up, we have Apex, or Eluna Apex of Wishes, which the card on this is Ghidorah, King of the Cosmos. 2 Teamer, so 2 generic, green, blue, red, for a legendary creature, Beast Elemental Dinosaur. There's a lot of dinosaurs in this deck. With the mutate cost of 3 and hybrid Gruul, which is green and red, and then blue, blue. Flying Trample. Whenever this creature mutates, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield or into your hand. So it's almost like Cascade. So Cascade says that if you cast a creature with Cascade, you exile the top cards of your library until you reveal a permanent card with lesser converted mana cost and put the rest on the bottom of your library. This one, it just hits a non-land permanent card, and then the rest stay in exile. So you exile 3 sorceries and then a creature. Those sorceries still stay in exile, but you get that creature. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool. So this one technically wasn't a Godzilla card because Kong isn't owned by the same company. The rights to Kong aren't owned by the same company as Godzilla. And so there wasn't a specific King Kong card in the Ikoria set, in case some of you are wondering why that was the reason. But this is essentially King Kong. They just had to change the name of it, yada, yada, yada. Kogla the Titan Ape, 3 green, green, green for legendary creature Ape. When Kogla the Titan Ape enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So it ETBs, it fights something. Pretty good. And then whenever it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. And then you can give him indestructible by paying 1 in the green by returning target human you control to its owner's hand. I've used this mechanic in Arena a lot recently. I didn't think I would, but it's very helpful.
Yeah, especially that on the attack trigger is yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, it can be frustrating. The ETB effect is more important to me than the second one because I have other ways to get rid of artifacts and enchantments. Anguirus or Gem Razor is one of them. Next up, we have Luminous Brood Moth or Mothra. Mothra. So, Mothra, Supersonic Queen, 2 white, insect. It's not a legendary creature, which was surprising, but it is a mythic creature or mythic rare for an insect. Flying, and whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under your control or under its owner's control specifically with a flying counter on it. It's recursion and gives your stuff evasion. It's really good card. Recursion. Really good recursions because it buffs them when they come back. It's wonderful.
The fact, I was going to say the fact that you could take the giant Atophages as an example. I guess it'd have to be the core card. It wouldn't work with the tokens.
Yeah, the tokens, once they leave the battlefield, they're gone. But if Giant Adaphage returns to the battlefield with flying, any token that's created of Giant Adaphage afterwards then has flying because the core card has flying.
Yeah. No, it's a good one.
It's very good. So after that, we have Marrowleaf Pixie, which first off, it's cute. It's adorable. It's a flying mana dork. But in the original Mothra series, there were these fairies or pixies that basically guarded the island that Mothra stayed on. So that's kind of what I based this off of. It's a good mana dork with a theme background. Migratory Greathorn. I threw this in there because of mana ramp. Oh, it's a wonderful.
It's a good card. It is a very underrated and underappreciated card in my book.
Mutate, or the original CMC is 3 and a green with a mutate cost of 2 and a green. Whenever this creature mutates, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So mana ramp on a creature if it mutates. And the second best card. No, I'd say the best card to put onto would be this card right here, Mysterious Egg. Whenever this creature mutates, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
It's a good one.
Super simple. Super simple. 1 mana, then start mutating onto it with anything. It buffs them up. Next up, we have Biollante, Plant Beast Form, which in the official card name is Nethrori, Apex of Death. 2 and Abzan, or white, black, green, for a legendary creature, Cat, Nightmare, Beast. Mutate is 4 hybrid Selesnya, or 4 green or white, black, black, with Death Touch and Lifelink. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total converted power or total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So whenever it mutates, if you have, let's just say, it says it on the card. I'm not going to even try to think of an example because my brain, my brain doesn't want to.
We can't brain on this show.
Right? Brain no work good, okay? I have protein. Me heavy lift, no brain. But basically, if you're trying to return creatures from your battlefield or from your graveyard to the battlefield, as long as it has up to 10 power, you can return it. So Galta, you couldn't get Galta back because its power is over 10. But you could get Giant Adaphage and Dreamtail Heron back, for example.
You could get Crystalline Giant back, too.
You can get Crystalline Giant back. You can get Dirge back as long as it equals 10. Anything exceeding 10, you can't do. So you got to do a little bit of math, but not much.
Yeah.
Once again, Nezahal, Primal Tide, Elder Dinosaur. I also threw this in there because of the Titanosaur reference, but I found AC, which I found to be a better reference to it. Sorry. Like I said, brain no work good. Nezahal, Primal Tide, 5/2 blue. This spell can't be countered. You have no maximum hand size. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, draw a card. And then you can discard 3 cards and essentially blink Nezahal. So blinking specifically, exile Nezahal Primal Tide, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So if someone's trying to remove it, you can discard 3 cards, exile it, and then at the beginning of the next end step, return it to the battlefield. I say blink as a reference to anything that leaves the battlefield, then comes back. Normally, blinking is an immediate effect, but I refer it to anything that essentially does that effect. Wonderful card. Once again, it fits the dinosaur theme that I had going on. Next up, we have Nyxbloom Ancient. No reference for this one, but it's 4 and 3 green with trample. If you tap a permanent for mana, so all of your mana rocks, all of your mana dorks, any of your lands, if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead.
It's a good one.
Couple that with things like Mana Flare.
Yeah.
You have
Mana for
out,
days.
Mana for out the wazoo. Just you're farting mana. Just yep, there you go. Just mana.
Actually, now that I think about it, because that's a 7-drop.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, by turn 8, you could easily have Progenitus out. Easily.
Just couple that with something like, oh my god, the World Tree.
Do you see why I was like, the World Tree would be perfect?
Yeah. That'd be good. I understand. The gears are turning. Your logic is making sense.
You know, I have my moments.
Don't mean to toot my own horn or anything.
Well, you know, I'm excited for this next card, by the way.
Polywalk Symbiote. Mm-hmm. It's pretty good. Baby Godzilla, Ruin Reborn, 1 in a blue for a creature frog. Each creature spell you cast costs 1 less to cast if it has mutate. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if it has mutate, draw a card, then discard a card. So filter. So anytime you cast a creature card with mutate on it, it's going to give you card advantage. Also, look at him. He's so cute.
I know. When this card was, I think this was one of the first ones that was revealed when Ikoria was announced. I think we all just went, "Aww."
Yeah, pretty much. Next up, we have Registar Alpha, dinosaur theme. Other dinosaurs you control have haste. I put it in there because of that ability. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of dinosaurs in this deck. So giving them haste is wonderful. When it enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. It's 3 and 1 red, 1 green. So 5 CMC, 4/4/4. But that ability to give all of your dinosaurs haste is why it's in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
The next card.
I love this card.
So
I love it more than Baby Godzilla.
So for all of you veterans out there that may be watching this, you know this card as Scooty Pup Jr. And it's kind of like a non-flashback, bit of PTSD for a lot of us. But so there once again, one, it's a great card to have in this deck because of all the mutate mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
2, there's a Godzilla kaiju called Mega Gyros that was essentially a giant dragonfly from an alternative timeline that Godzilla had to fight. That was creating copies of itself, and it was just giving birth to a lot of smaller ones. So that's kind of what I referenced.
Oh, that's cool. I thought you put it in there just because it allows you to swing wide.
It does, but I also put it in there because of a Godzilla reference. And Scute Swarm is 2 and a green with a landfall ability. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scute Swarm instead.
This one card broke Arena. So it legitimately broke Arena to the point where they actually had to create a patch capping you off at a max of 250 Scute Swarms. Before the patch, I think the most I had was about 950.
It's so dumb. I hate it. I almost didn't include it in the deck because, like I said, PTSD. Specifically for the coupling of this with it.
So what's really fun to do, a fun combo. You play Scute Swarm.
Mm-hmm.
Next turn, or if you have the mana, you then mutate Migratory Greathorn onto Scute Swarm, tutoring out a land. Jumps on the battlefield. Right. Now you're creating copies of Migratory Greathorn, which you put that on top. It's instead of it being a 1/1, it's a 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next turn, because I'm this kind of player, you then mutate Gemrazor onto it and create a horde of 6/6 Gemrazors with trample. People will die.
And not to mention when you mutated again, the Migratory Greathorn effect activates. So you search for more lands.
Mm-hmm. Every time it mutates.
So,
Yes,
every time.
I'm one of those players that does that. I unfortunately learned the hard way that mutating Brocos, Apex of Forever, or BioQuartz Space Godzilla onto
Mhm.
Scoot Swarm and making copies of that it doesn't work so well
Yeah.
unless you have something like Sakashima of 1,000 Faces or Mirror Gallery on the battlefield.
Something that makes the legend rule not apply.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So that's Scoot Swarm.
Yeah.
That's Scoot Swarm. We're going to move past it. So we kind of the Smog Elemental is a reference to another creature that I kind of made a reference to earlier. Going back up here to our swamps, that is Hedora, the pollution monster.
Oh, okay.
Smog Elemental is the pollution monster or elemental. So that's the reference there. And then it's 4 black with flying, or a creature elemental with flying. Creatures with flying your opponent's control get -1/-1. So my friend Josh, also named Josh, plays a flying tribal deck. The creature is the new Omnath. All of his stuff has flying. All of it. And so Smog Elemental debuffs all of his creatures. And it's really fun to see this card hit the battlefield and his face just go, huh. Next up, we have our second King Caesar. This one is based off of Snapdax, Apex of the Hunt. King Caesar, the Awoken Titan, is 1 in Mardu, so 1 red, white, black, for a legendary creature, Dinosaur Cat Nightmare, with a mutate cost of 2 hybrid Rakdos or hybrid black-red, white-white, for a creature with double strike. Whenever this creature mutates, it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker and opponent controls, and you gain 4 life. So mutate it onto something, 4 damage. Just target creature or planeswalker. For a planeswalker, it can be detrimental. Most planeswalkers are, especially now, have been being made with lower loyalty counters when it enters the battlefield. So, especially after War of the Spark, a lot of them have entered the battlefield with low loyalty counters. So you play Snapdax or King Caesar and just snipe down someone's planeswalker, and then you still gain that 4 life. It's pretty good creature card, especially since it's only 4 mana.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Solemn Simulacrum, which I included in the deck because there's a kaiju called, or not technically kaiju, called Jet Jaguar. He's a giant robot that teamed up with Godzilla to fight Megalon and Gigan in one film. The reference here is because Jet Jaguar, I encourage you guys to go look at this Jet Jaguar's backstory and how it came to be a kaiju or a Monsterverse character. It's actually really depressing on seeing how it became a creature. I don't want to go into depth with it because otherwise I go into a tangent. So,
and Solemn Simulacrum has the nickname Sad Robot, so it works.
Sad Robot, yeah. For those who don't know, Sad Robot or Solemn Simulacrum or Melancholy Automaton, in my playgroup, that's what I call it. When it ETBs, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tab, then shuffle your library. And then when it dies, you draw a card. So it's card value and ramp on a creature card. That's it. Sprite Dragon is Dorat, the perfect pet. So in Ghidorah's, when they redid his backstory, the Dorats were creatures from the future that basically, once it absorbed so much power, they fused together to become Ghidorah. So that's what the Dorats are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sprite Dragon. So is it cost? So 1 blue, 1 red. Flying haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Sprite Dragon. It's there. It's in the deck. As far as non-creature spells, we don't have a lot compared to how many creature spells we have. But it's still in the deck. You can mutate on it. You can buff it up early game if you have non-creature spells available, so on and so forth. Next up, we have Thantis the War Weaver, based off of there's a giant spider that actually has a name that I'm blanking on. Give me a second. It's not Kamacuras, because Kamacuras was a giant praying mantis. Kumunga was it.
Oh, okay.
Kumunga was a giant spider that Godzilla ended up fighting at some point. But Thantis the War Weaver is 3 in Jund, so 3 black, red, green for legendary creature spider with vigilance and reach. All creatures attack each combat if able. So if someone has a bunch of mana dorks that they're sitting back with, this is a good way to get rid of those mana dorks because they still have to attack no matter what. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, put a +1/+1 counter on Thantis the War Weaver. So it discourages people from attacking you by buffing up Thantis. This is a group slug card. Wonderful. And then next up, we have our next Godzilla card, or our first Godzilla card. Technically, first Godzilla card, because we haven't gotten to the other one. If I can get
we saved the best for last.
Yeah, right. The main man of the deck. Godzilla, Primeval Champion. 7 green, or Titanoth Rex. Creature, dinosaur beast with trample and cycling. Cycling is going to be a big thing for this card specifically, because it's really going to be hard to get that 9 CMC card out. But it's an 11/11 with trample, cycling 1 in green. Whenever you cycle Titanoth Rex, put a trample counter on target creature you control. You can cycle at instant speed. So if someone goes to block your 11/11 with a 1/1, cycle this, and target creature, which is your whatever that you're attacking with, gains trample. Damage still goes through. Giant. Oh wait, Giant out of fetch already has trample, so never mind. But it's a good card. Vadrok, Apex of Thunder, or Rodan, Titan of Winged Fury, which is just Jeskai. The others have had like 3 generic or 1 generic. This one is just blue, red, white. Legendary creature, Elemental Dinosaur Cat, with a mutate cost of 1 white or blue. Red, flying first strike. Whenever this creature mutates, you may cast target non-creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. So, mutate Rodan, get your Path to Exile, get your Cyclonic Rift if you want. You can't overload it, but you can still get your Cyclonic Rift. Get your Swords of Plowshares. Get your Cultivate, Farseek, anything with CMC 3 or less, you can get out of your graveyard with Rodan. Non-creature card. Not creatures, but non-creature cards. So, fun fact, this card specifically was the first card I opened out of the Ikoria packs. It was a foil Space Godzilla Death Corona, and as we know, when Ikoria dropped, the whole coronavirus pandemic started.
Yeah.
So,
This card wreaked havoc in the Magic community simply because of the, COVID-19 was something we didn't know a whole lot about. Stuff was shutting down. Wizards of the Coast had printed this card long before the coronavirus was even a thing. And so to have this come out at that same time, it was at one point, I think the foil was up to like $200.
it was expensive.
Yeah, people were spending a ridiculous amount.
It was triple digits for it. Triple digit. And then the price dropped because people realized, oh, it's actually not that good of a card, blah, 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 blah. So it was a major feel bad. Luckily, I pulled the foil one out of my first pack. And so all of my friends immediately were like, you better hard case that immediately. And I didn't, but there it is. Space Godzilla Death Corona, 6, black, Void Beckoner is the actual card name. Creature, Nightmare Horror with Death Touch. Cycling 2 and a black. When you cycle Void Beckoner, put a Death Touch counter on target creature you control. So kind of like with Titanoth Rex with the cycling cost, and you can put a trample counter on something. Void Beckoner, when you cycle it, you can put a Death Touch counter on something. A creature you control. Death Touch counter on my enchantment. That'd be funny.
Yes.
Next up, we have Sorry, I hear my phone buzzing because somebody's calling me, and they know that they shouldn't be calling me right now because I'm doing stuff. It bothers me so much. Anyways,
it happens.
Anyways, Wayward Swordtooth is our next up. There it is. Wayward Swordtooth, 2 and a green, creature dinosaur with the Ascend mechanic. I believe we discussed the Ascend mechanic in our last episode, where if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game.
Yep.
You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Wayward Swordtooth can't attack or block unless you control the city's blessing. So it's 3 mana for 5/5. So you can get it out turn 3, play an additional land on each of your turns. But until you get the city's blessing, you can't attack with it or block with it. So it's just sitting there, which is fine. It's fine to just sit there. I'll gladly let it sit there and allow me to play extra lands on each of my turns. I am okay with it.
If you're not okay with it, you need to reevaluate how you play the game.
Right? Get all the lands. Get all the lands. Next up, we have Yadaro, Wandering Monster. So this one is actually Shin Godzilla. So it's our second Godzilla that we've seen in the deck so far. The Shin Godzilla was one of the spin-off movies that Japan made. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really good movie. A whole revamp of the series, or not revamp, but like I said, a twist on the series. Wonderful movie. Godzilla Doom Inevitable is the name of the card. 5, 2 red for a legendary creature, dinosaur turtle. Oh man, they should have made a Gamera. That would have been funny. Right? Kind of like with Kong, they didn't have the rights because Gamera is owned by a different film industry.
Yeah.
But Godzilla Doom Inevitable has Trample and Haste, and it has Cycling for 1 and a red. So you have this in your starting hand, you can cycle it away. And when you cycle Yadara Wandering Monster, shuffle it into your library from your graveyard. If you cycled, specifically this card, 4 or more times this game, put it onto the battlefield from your graveyard instead. So in let's say the standard format where you can have multiples of these, you can run 4 of them, run 3 of them, run multiples of them, and cycle Yadaro Wandering Monster 4 more times. So on your 4th time, when you cycle it, not only do you get the cycling, draw a card, but you get to put this onto the battlefield. Well, actually, no, it says instead. So I don't know if you would still draw the card. I don't know if it would replace the whole effect or just the part where you shuffle into your library.
Let me check the gatherer for that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I want to be clear on, so I don't give anybody the wrong idea on how to play this card. In Commander, you're not going to run 4 of them. Nope. You can only run 1 of them. Also, that artwork. I love the artwork for this one because it goes back to the original roots of Godzilla being a force of destruction. And that's kind of how the movie went back to its roots, being a force of destruction. And the design of it, although I'm not happy with the arm design of it, they gave him really stubby arms, kind of like a T-Rex. Yeah. Oh, it was still wonderful. Wonderful movie. So I'll let you look at that rule.
Yeah, well, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 different rulings for that one card, so I'm trying to
find out which one it is.
Yeah. Welcome to Magic the Gathering, folks.
There's 20,000 plus cards. You have to know every rule to all of them.
This is why we have the Gatherer.
Right. In the meantime, a word for our sponsor. Thank you so much. I'm glad we could have.
What I will do, I've got to do some more research on that. I will include that in the description.
Okay.
For everyone to look at. I'll include the ruling. I'll include the link to it. So
for right now, I want to say that it doesn't replace the whole effect. I want to say you still get the cycling card draw.
Yeah, you would get the card draw, but it's not going to hit the graveyard.
And hit the graveyard or shuffle it away. You're going to put it onto the battlefield with the card draw. That's what I want to say is going to happen. But we'll leave it in the comments below or the description below. And once we figure that out and get the definite answer, we'll let you guys know.
Yep.
And then last but certainly not least, the MVP of the deck and the third Godzilla card that we have. The one that has the original name or an original name, because there is no other card printed with Zalortha Strength Incarnate. There is no other artwork for Zalortha Strength Incarnate. There is specifically only this card. It is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. So once I get there, it is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Even if I click on it,
It'll
and it
bring
goes
up
to it,
the beautiful art.
beautiful Godzilla artwork, because there is no alternative art. There is only this card for Zalortha. They had to give it a name due to copyright rules and laws and stuff like that. Yeah. But Zalortha Strength Incarnate is 3 green-red for a legendary creature, Dinosaur. So once again, there's a lot of dinosaurs in this deck. Has trample, and lethal damage dealt to creatures you control is determined by their power rather than their toughness. So we've seen a lot of cards such as Arcades, the strategist, or the Abzan tree that I'm blanking on the name of, that basically say that your creatures deal power equal to their toughness rather than their power. This is essentially the opposite of it. So Godzilla says all of your creature cards, if they're like 9/1s or 8/1s, he himself is a 7/3. He does not technically get destroyed by damage by just dealing 3 damage to it. So if you the new red card, Frostbite, if you control a snow permanent, it deals 3 damage instead. You can't get rid of Godzilla with it, because even though it's dealing 3 damage and he has 3 toughness, specifically says lethal damage dealt to creatures you control is determined by their power rather than their toughness. So you have to deal 7 damage to get rid of it.
So speaking of Jank, which it feels the perfect, and I don't know if this is intentional on how you did that, with Godzilla, King of the Monsters on the battlefield. Sharix, the Raging Isle.
Mm-hmm.
Play a little tap 6. Activate that ability twice. Make his power 16.
16/1.
It does. With that, yeah, because then at that point you're doing 16 damage instead of
that. His power becomes 16, and so you have to deal 16 damage to get rid of him.
Ooh, that's naughty.
Yes.
That is Jank.
It's super naughty. Super naughty. I love it. Also, it also works with Frenzied Raptor. Frenzied Raptor is a 4/2. You now have to deal 4 damage to it to get rid of it. There's all sorts. I love this deck. It's just, I'm trying to find the next one that's more powerful. Do I not have another one? I thought I had more. I could have sworn I had more, but they're all of them are either like 4/4s or 2/2s. They match P&T. 7. There we go. I knew I had one more. Kong. Kong is a 7/6. So you have to deal 7 damage to Kong or Kogla to essentially get rid of him. But that is, I had one card here in the maybe board back when I was trying to do 5-color mutate. I put Zagoth Mamba in here. It's 1 black. Whenever this creature mutates, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. That's again maybe board. It's not specifically in the deck.
Yeah.
But if I decided to put it in there, I could have. But that's it. That's the deck. If we look over here, once again, our CMC stuff, it's a little wacky, but we have many things in there that allow us to search for the lands we need, allow us to either double our mana or triple our mana, allowing us to get more mana, mana fixing, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It Tapped Out rates this as 88% casual, which I'm not going to debate whatsoever, because this is a themed deck. Kind of like if I made a goblin deck, where all the goblins of the deck had to have been wearing hats for it to be included.
Or the Modern Horizons episode of Game Nights, the bear deck.
Mm-hmm. Not everything in here is like, it's not an optimized deck or focused deck.
No,
it's
a fun deck.
It is a jank deck.
And one that I am excited to play against, and we may just have to do a gameplay video with that deck.
Definitely. Once I actually get all of the pieces in real life, I will definitely be playing it. There's just a few things I'm missing. Like, I actually don't own a single copy of Mana Flare. Not a single copy. So I've got to get that. But I had fun building it. I had fun trying to find things. I literally had like list of Godzilla monsters pulled up and going through and matching the descriptions with Match the Gathering cards to the description of the monsters, and just taking hours and searching. It was a lot of fun.
That's what makes, at least in my opinion, that's what makes deck building fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
just
I like it. I like it a lot.
And if you guys like it, leave a comment on what you would do with it. Go through Tapped Out. The suggestions are open. You can go through and copy it and make your own additions to it. All kinds of stuff. So feel free to edit and change whatever you feel like. Optimize it if you want. Change the commander if you want. But leave it in the comments. Let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
If you think it's an absolute crap of a deck and I should be ashamed of myself, feel free to tell me. I will only cry for 2 days. It's fine. That's a joke.
Honestly, I think it's a very not only theme deck, but it definitely has the potential to run really well. I think adding the world tree to it definitely helped, as far
just
as
for mana fixing.
Just for the mana fixing. But yeah, you could get mean and throw stuff like Fiery Emancipation in.
Right.
But that,
which
again, the way my brain works, I like to be a little more on the gnarly side.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of options that I could have put in. There was a few cards that I almost threw in just because of the artwork. They looked like kaiju attacks. Savage Twister being one.
Yeah.
But I decided not to. Lavalanche, I think, was one. I think that was something I based off Baragon once again. When Godzilla versus, once again, the original Godzilla versus Mothra movie, he and Batra were fighting, and they fell into a fault line, and Godzilla was trapped in like under the crust of the earth. And then he emerged out of Mount Fiji and lava spewing everywhere. And he's like, "Oh, God, how dare you do that to me?" Blah.
This deck would be fun to play against using my Calamax, the Stormsire deck.
Mm-hmm. Lightning Butt. Good old
Lightning Butt. Yep.
I've got a few edits on that one myself. I'm working on it.
Yeah, I just recently upgraded mine because of a lot of stuff that has come out since those precons came out. So
right. So
good times. I dig it. I dig it.
Right. But that's the deck. Josh, do you have anything to add?
I don't. If you guys are enjoying this, make sure to leave a comment, share it. All the fun things. Yeah, tweet it out. Let us know what you think as well. If you say it's crap, obviously Matthew will cry in the corner for a couple days. I'll probably be crying in the corner. I mean, I'll be in the corner for like a week. Probably be forced to read Marvel after that.
In my bed. I live in the corner. Okay, it means nothing to me.
Okay, it's fine. No,
it's fine.
Nobody puts Matthew in the corner, but
except me.
But also stay tuned to some announcements coming up with Undercover Capes. We got some pretty big stuff, which will also include the Jank think tank. So stay tuned to undercovercapes.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we'll be making those announcements. It's going to be a good time.
All right. And until next time, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, this is Nightlight tapping out. We'll catch you on the flip side.